Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at weather next week, 10 days in today's video. It's takes us to around the 20th of July. So we're going into the second half of the month with this update. We'll start off having a look at tomorrow's wet weather. There's a lot of rain heading from the south of the UK tomorrow. So we'll begin by looking at that. We're going to start off with the FACS charts, which are the human interpretation of models by forecasters at the UK Met Office. This is the FACS chart for midday tomorrow, where you see we've got several weather fronts close to the country. We've got a couple there through parts of central England and the UK. We've also got another area of low pressure out here sitting to our southwest, and an area of low pressure is heading in towards Ireland. So it's a very unsettled and messy picture. But don't get through to midnight on Wednesday. That area of low pressure is actually pushing in across the south. The heaviest rain will be along this front just here. The exact track of that front is proving a little bit problematical. It might be a little bit further north than this is suggesting. Equally, it could be a little bit further south. But along that front, going to be a pulse of very heavy rain. So that's where the wettest conditions will be late tomorrow and into tomorrow night. Quite widely, it's going to be wet weather tomorrow, but it'll be along that occlusion that we have the very heaviest of the rain. By midday on Wednesday, that area of low pressure is moving away to our east. It's taking the rain away with it. Maybe get a little bit of a build of pressure from the Atlantic, so Wednesday actually looks a fairly decent day. This over GFS is picking up the precipitation, so this is 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning. We've got an area of rain here sitting to our southwest, otherwise a fair amount of dry weather. Through the morning we find wet weather getting going across Wales and southwestern parts of England. Some of that rain is quite heavy. Further east mostly dry through the morning, but in the afternoon it turns very wet. Look across much of England and Wales. And again, you see where we have the deepest blue, that's where we've got that occluded front. Again, it might be a little bit north of that, it might be a little bit south of where the GFS is predicting it, but it'll be along that front that we have the wettest of the weather. That rain continues up to midnight on Wednesday, then across much of eastern England down to East Anglia and southeastern England too, before finally clearing away early on Wednesday morning. That's 6 o'clock in the morning where the rain is going off in towards the North Sea and Belgium and Holland. This is how the high resolution Euro 4 model from Weather Online is picking things up. You can find a link to Weather Online on the links page. So 6 o'clock in the morning, again, there's the heaviest rain sitting across southern Ireland down to far southwest of England. It is suggesting some showery outbreaks across Wales and parts of the Midlands first thing in the morning. And then through into the midday period, we find that massive rain gathering down to the southwest. Still some showery bursts coming through the Midlands into East Anglia. And then it just turns wetter through the afternoon. So by 6 o'clock in the evening, it's pouring with rain here across much of England and Wales. Just general outbreaks of rain. But we know it's going to be that swathe of heavier rain. And the Euro 4 model, again, it's taking that by midnight on Wednesday, taking that through South Wales in towards parts of the west and southern Midlands, and then possibly over towards East Anglia as well. Outside of that, it's going to be generally wet, don't get me wrong, but there's just this band of, or this swathe of particularly heavy rain that we're going to be a little bit concerned about. By 6 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, that rain is clearing away to the east. Again, the heaviest rain is through parts of East Anglia. But much of eastern England, or at least much of East Anglia down to southeast England, is quite wet at 6 o'clock in the morning. Total precipitation accumulation from this, according to the Euro 4 model, is quite wide across England and Wales, at around 10 millimetres. So it's going to be quite a wet spell of weather across the bulk of England and Wales. But you see this area of darker blue, this line of dark blue, that's where we've got that occluded front, and that's the swathe. It's a narrow swathe, but it's a swathe of heavier bursts of rain. And in those areas, we could be seeing anything up to 50 millimetres of rain, which is a couple of inches, according to the Euro 4 model. I think that's probably a bit overdone, but certainly along that occluded front, we might get up to 25 millimetres of rain. I would have thought an inch of rain in a fairly short space of time. So it might be a little bit to the north and it might be a little bit to the south, but all in all, quite a wet day coming up later tomorrow and then into tomorrow night and first thing on Wednesday. Right. Cracking on with the week to 10-day update, then we'll start off with the central temperature from the UK Met Office at Hadley. Provisionally, July has now hit 18 degrees. So, provisional up to yesterday, the 9th of July, we've hit 18.0, an anomaly of 2.3 degrees above average. That might be as high as it gets this month, because I think the next week or so we'll see this gradually ticking back downwards again. Of course, if we was to get a heat wave in the second half of the month at some point, that might pick it back up towards 18 degrees. But for now, I think that's probably about as high as we're getting for the time being. I would expect that's going to tick down slightly over the next few days. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average, and we're looking generally a little bit on the cooler side. So that's why I say I think that the CET will be ticking down over the next few days, because we are going a little bit cooler in the days ahead. That precipitation spike just there, quite a big one, is associated with tomorrow's wet weather, of course. So a lot of heavy rain to come down in the south. Now, we get through to the weekend and we find the temperatures lifting up, so it's going to be turning warmer over the weekend. And then after that, which goes into the second half of July, this period just here, it's in the extended range, but what we're looking for then is to see whether we lift those temperatures back up again. I've got a feeling the final week could turn very warm, potentially even hot. I wouldn't be that surprised if we have a bit of a heat wave in the final week of July. Not a huge amount of evidence for it on that ensemble, although there are quite a few hot outliers, but just something to be aware of. The final week might turn a bit hotter. In terms of precipitation, so once we get tomorrow's very wet weather out of the way, essentially for the south, there's quite a bit of dry weather through the rest of the week. Next week might turn a little bit more showery, but there's no sign of anything particularly wet once tomorrow's heavy rain is finished with us. Temperature anomalies are going a little bit cooler than average for the week from the 10th through to the 18th of July, slightly on the cooler than average side. Precipitation anomalies are average to a bit wetter than average from the 10th to the 18th of July. Rain particularly focused on England and Wales, where it is wetter than average. Scotland is closer to average, and Northern Ireland actually coming out a little bit drier than average. So here's how the GFS is showing things for Friday then, and we're trying to build a ridge up from the Azores. That becomes more influential into Saturday. That'll give many of us a fairly warm start to the weekend. There will still be some showers left in the north, but for England and Wales, I think summer is back at the weekend. That Azores high is still there into Sunday as well, so potentially for the south it could be a very, very nice weekend. Up in the north, always a little bit more unsettled, and that's been the case really throughout the whole of the summer, so that continues into the weekend. Early next week, and we're still trying to extend the ridge up from the Azores, but it's a little bit weaker, so we might get some showery conditions coming through during the early part of next week. And then that takes us to day 10, when it's all starting to look rather messy really. This takes us to Thursday, the 20th of July. We've got low pressure out to the north and west. We're trying to push up hotter air from the south, and maybe quite unstable air as well. All of this stuff down here over France and into northern Spain, that's quite hot but unstable air that's trying to push up towards the southern part of the country. So it may be that next week we might be thinking about things turning warmer again, but possibly rather unstable and maybe with some thunder. Let's have a look at the ECMWF, and that shows the weekend. Again, we get the extension from the Azores high into the south, so it's going to be a good deal of dry and fine and quite warm weather in the south, but always more unsettled up to the north with some showery bursts of rain. Early next week, so Monday, we build the Azores Ridge up again, so that gives us a fine start to next week. However, Tuesday next week is bringing low pressure in from off the Atlantic. Quite a vigorous depression that's producing showers or longer spells of rain as well. We finish up on day 10, which is Thursday, 20th of July. Looking very different actually to what the GFS is doing, so they're not in agreement that the 7 to 10 day time frame this morning. It looks rather changeable and fairly cool as well. The Azores high again, it's centred out to our southwest, low pressures up to the north, to the northeast, and the flow is from a west-northwesterly direction, which will probably be fairly cool, and it will be producing some showery bursts, particularly up in the north as well. So it's not clear cut actually what's happening next week, but I would think that the GFS solution, although it looked rather complicated, may be the most likely outcome, which is to be showery in the north. And in the south, it might have a go getting quite warm, but if it does, it could be unstable and possibly producing some thunder. I mean, I'm still looking out for this possibility of something hotter as we go into the final week of the month. So that's sort of the medium range weather. In terms of a shorter range, all eyes on the wet weather tomorrow. Been very dry across parts of southern England, the Midlands particularly. So it looks like we get some really useful rainfall tomorrow. Let's hope this doesn't turn into a letdown, because the gardens really do need it now. So we'll see whether this rain does materialise tomorrow. Remember, not much happening in the morning. It's more for the afternoon and then into the evening through to the early hours of Wednesday. So we'll see whether this wet weather does set up or not. If it does, one or two places might get up to 25 millimetres, which is going to be very, very useful. All right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.